I know we have one other member that he might be running late, Mr. Juan Moran, which you know. So hopefully he does show up. I know they had an emergency meeting. But again, I know it's a very short time frame to talk to you, and we've been meaning to talk to you for quite some time, Mr. Hidalgo, so we're happy. Thank you again for meeting with us. We're gonna do a quick, can't even speak anymore, a quick intro from everyone so you could see and meet the new faces that you might have not met before.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll start on that side. So, introductions. Who you are, who are you representing, why are you here, whatever you want to share with Mr. Hidalgo.
Okay, I'm Mark Weller. I work for California's pesticide reform. I live in Santa Cruz, but I've been living in the Monterey Peninsula since 1990.
Okay. Jacob Sandoval, I'm a resident of Monterey County. I also serve as State Director of California LULAC, which is essentially the President of California, and I'm also a Board President of the Santa Rita District here.
Hi, my name is Alma Perez. I'm a member of the community in Greenfield. I'm a member of Líderes Campesinas, and also I support here in SAS program. And I'm just here to see what changes can be made. Thank you.
My name is Ana Barrera. I'm here representing Salinas Valley Federation of Teachers, as well as a teacher here in Salinas.
Buenas tardes, Luis Torres, y soy miembro de SAS de Greenfield.
Omar Rodriguez, member of SAS, Santa Cruz Barrios Unidos, mentor in Santa Cruz County, Monterey County.
Karen Cameron, Concerned Salinas resident, and I'm a member of SAS for over a decade, retired teacher.
My name is Daniel Munoz, and I just come as a concerned resident of District 1 in Salinas.
Wes White, I've been a part of SAS since 2015, so still a small-time member.
Hi, my name is Victor Torres. I am a member of Safe Safe Schools, a co-founder of a youth-led organization, Future Leaders of Change, and also a concerned citizen as well from Greenfield.
Welcome, and I'm Juan Hidalgo. I serve as Agricultural Commissioner here in Monterey County. And with me are my assistant, Rich Ordonez, and I have a couple of staff that just showed up. Ken Allen, he's our Deputy Ag Commissioner. He oversees our pesticide enforcement program. And Tim Lewis, he's Deputy Ag Commissioner with my office as well, has a tremendous amount of experience on the pesticide programs as well. So, yeah, no, welcome, and thanks for taking some time to voice some of your concerns to us.
Yeah, so thank you for meeting with us. We do have a packet for you that I'm going to be handing over to you, Mr. Hidalgo. We do, as you could remember from previous emails that we've been exchanging back and forth, this has been going on for a while, since I believe 2023, when we started sending you emails regarding 2023 regarding our biggest campaigns that we currently have, and also included in your packet, you'll see news conferences that we had both in Watsonville and right here in the city of Salinas regarding organophosphates. So that's one of the biggest topics today, and we also want to talk about fumigants, which I know that we've shared that information with you via email, since we know that Monterey County has the highest usage for those two, for both fumigants and organophosphates, and the whole state of California. And so I'm going to let members chime in, but we do definitely want to just brief you a little bit of that conversation. I know we don't have a lot of time, but does anybody want to add anything? That's, I think, the biggest reason why we're here is to talk about those two things. And then at the end, obviously, you'll hear from what we are expecting as a group, our demands, or at least our push towards maybe something that you could do, hoping that you could do. But yes, so the conversation is right here on the table. If any of you SAS members want to talk specifically with the whole fumigant conversation and organophosphates, and
I want to talk. So,
yeah.
On behalf of Everett Alvarez High School, our school just got an air monitor last week.
Okay.
And that's, funded by our school district, temporary for a month. But I'm hoping that at some point, the 3 ranches that are constantly, I'm getting those spray day notifications, be the first pilot programs in terms of going organic for our school, because I'm on that campus. I live across the street, so when my school gets notification through spray days, I'm also getting notification at my home. Starting in March, I'm no longer walking around the school because I'm afraid, you know, what am I gonna come around? You know, they're being sprayed 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And we're gonna start getting data at the end of this month, but there's no need for me to be closing my windows at my home. I live in the Creek Bridge community. I work right there. You know, the health issues, you know, that not only myself, but my coworkers have, you know, that are related to what's coming across the fields. The cancer rates. Just, you know, recently with the emails that people have been getting about what I'm doing at the state level. At the state level, you know, we're suing the regulations that are happening with CRLA. I'm one of the plaintiffs there as well. And, you know, there's so much different regulation, you know, and one of the things I tell my lawyers is, I'm at a school, you know, 1/4 mile buffer zones, you know, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., but yet I'm getting notifications at 7 a.m. that, you know, this pesticide that's, you know, chlorpyrifos is being used across the field at 7 a.m. on a Friday or on a Thursday. What about our regulations, you know, and that piece is, you know, a different case that's gonna be coming. But to me, it's something that, you know, our schools need to be protected. 1 mile buffer zones, especially right here in Monterey County, around every school. And not only that, but let's just try to push for going organic, especially around Everett Alvarez. My kids are out there on weekends. The facility never closes from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. It is open Saturdays. It is open beyond 6 p.m. And, you know, I'm always warning my kids, like, mijo, like, be careful when you're out there, log in, you know. But I really want to pass this down, but these are the three fields that I would love to see be the first to be piloted, like, put in resources, and also to my school district, put in resources so that we can monitor. I used to teach in Calexico High School, and in Imperial County, they had an alarm system where if it went off, lockdown. You know, we got drift coming in. In 2008, there was a chlorpicrine spill that happened across Baranda into the homes across from Everett Alvarez. And that got published at Humboldt State, Mapping a Menace. You know, the information that our community has been exposed to, like, we need to start creating these buffer zones, 1 mile buffer zones around every school in Monterey County, and let's start, you know, with these 3 fields, you know, let's try to help those farmers go organic. Because this is my community that I serve in. I will continue to challenge what is happening here, because this is environmental racism.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for sharing that. And then going back to Anna's conversation, yeah, our topic is the cancer-causing fumigant 1,3-D and the fumigant family in general, and also our brain cause organophosphates, which damage the brain. And basically going back to what Anna mentioned, she mentioned chlorpyrifos, and we know that that was banned back in 2020, but there's still other organophosphates, right? Part of that organophosphate family that we want to ban. And like Anna mentioned it perfectly, in our beautiful area that we live in, Monterey County, specifically the Salinas Valley or the Pajaro region, we have the weather conditions. We also know that these pesticides, like Anna said it best with environmental racism, this is disproportionately affecting certain community members. And those certain community members are the majority Indigenous Latino community members. And I think that's why you hear the sentiment, you see our faces, we're all representing and being that voice for each of our community members. Again, these are harming our community, both in the Pajaro and the Salinas Valley regions. You've seen the reports that have come out on both fumigants and OPs, and I included that in the packet. And so anybody else would want to add anything else? I don't want to be taking up all the meeting and speaking.
Yes. I'm really concerned about a few of the choices that you're making.
Okay.
Because your pen signs when there's 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., within the same 1 mile, and I think that could be spread out differently. In terms of data, I'd encourage you to review the environmental justice element of the Planning Commission for their overall plan, because there's a lot of data in here. Ironically, those who developed this were from out of town, so they didn't even mention pesticides under air quality. But there is a section here that talks about how several areas exceed the 75th percentile, and they're much more alarming within our census tract. Baranda, 99th percentile. Castroville, 95 to 99, Chular, 88, Las Lomas, 99, Moss Landing, 99, Pajaro, 79 to 100, Pine Canyon, 80, San Lucas, it goes on. So if you want data about pesticides, I'd suggest that you review this. But I would encourage you to really use wisdom in your choices, because we spoke with you last and we talked about urgency for banning organophosphates. And I believe you said something like, well, I'm deferring to the EPA and those things take time. Well, we don't have time. And during the last year or two, the state has significantly decreased organophosphates as a trend. And yet years were up 54%. And according to some scientific data, that may have put half the pregnancies at risk. So those are a few of my concerns. The toxic restricted pesticides that we're getting from spray days, it's alarming the information we're getting, but as you're aware, there's a whole other category of unrestricted, including the organophosphates. So we'd really like you to take it seriously.
Yeah,
Karen?
thank you. And I think I would mention that, you know, you are probably aware that DPR, to their air monitoring program, they have about 15 different organophosphates that they're also monitoring for in the air. And the reason behind that is because the state acknowledges that these are high-risk pesticides, right? So our air monitoring in Pajaro is monitoring for a lot of the organophosphates that you have sent me in your communications, telling me that you have concerns about. So I think it's important to also look at that data, and if you look at their air monitoring results, and they release a report every year, as you're aware, the latest one is from 2024, so it's always a year behind because the data, they have to look at it from the year before. You know, if you look at the result for our region, a lot of the organophosphates, there is either like small trace detections or no detections at all. So I think that shows that, you know, the state has concerns, which is why they're looking at these materials. And at this point, they haven't found anything that is of an alarm based on their health screening labels that they have set up for these materials. So I think that's something that needs to be taken into account, and something that the community needs to be aware of, that yes, you know, your concerns are the same concerns that we have at the state level and with my office. I don't have a set of scientists that can go out and monitor, but we rely on the state because they have the scientists. And so they are doing some of that work to be able to monitor for these materials. We're just one of 4 monitoring stations in the state, and you're probably aware that they're looking at adding and increasing their air monitoring network.
And in 2017, we had a monitor and it was pulled away, and that's why to me it's like we need to have this urgency. You see, while we were fighting for 1 mile buffer zones, next thing we get together at Safe Act Safe Schools, and it's like, oh, and by the way, now you have your buffer zones, but then they pulled what was giving us the data. They got rid of the monitor, and to me that was like another battle.
And I would suggest, and I wasn't here when that happened, because I think you might be referring to the monitor that was located in Salinas, and I think that was, I can't remember, Ken, was it a year or 2 that there were? 2. Okay.
So can I ask, because one of my concerns is that I will be addressing CDPR, that they need to put an air monitor back to Salinas. I don't understand why we're not on the list of 10. Is that a common concern that you have? Will you also be pressing for an air monitor here in Salinas? Because we're the salad bowl of the world and we don't know what we're breathing. And it's unrealistic.
If the state decides that they want to put an air monitor in Salinas, I would support that choice, because this is something that you have brought to my attention a few times. I'm not the ultimate decision maker for those decisions, right? It's DPR, and as you might be aware, they're having a public hearing in a couple of weeks, I think.
14?
Yeah, I think so, for the air monitoring locations, right? But they do have a set of standards that they have to follow, and I think from the information that they have put out, they're already thinking about specific counties. But yes, I mean, if the state is willing to put an air monitoring here in Salinas, I would support that decision. I think it would be good to be able to see, and know, what's there in the air. Right now, we're relying on the air monitoring station that's in Pajaro. I think that's pretty good, because a lot of the commodities that are grown in the Pajaro area are pretty much representative of the commodities that are grown around the Salinas, the city of Salinas as well. So I think it gives me, I think it's helpful to me, because then I can feel confident in that the data that they're getting in Pajaro could be pretty comparable to what we might see in other parts of the county because our commodities are basically the same grown throughout the area here.
But just for clarifications, when you talk about the air monitor and the data, it was the air monitor collecting the data at Ohlone Elementary, because the switch just happened recently to Pajaro, right?
Correct.
So how can we really rely on that data to say that the usage of organophosphates is down in the Salinas Valley, when again, they have elaborated that there's no air monitor in this region, and we can't compare counties? I know I understand where you're coming from, and
Right.
that's completely great that it's at Pajaro now, but how long has it been since it switched over? It's just been what, 2-3 months, I
Right.
believe? So,
Well, and the point I was trying to make is that I think the Ohlone location was also not a bad location because Ohlone School is really right next to all the ag fields, and that monitor is not just picking up what's being grown here in Monterey County, but Santa Cruz County is right next door, so it's also able to pick up what's grown in that region right there. So again, the commodities are the same, a lot of strawberries, lettuce, broccoli, things like that are grown around the city of Salinas too. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think there's some good representation between the data that's being collected there. And yes, you're right, it's not like, it would be great to see what is the data coming out of Salinas, what does that look like, but at least with what we have right now, at least the commodities are not completely different, right? Like we're not talking about apple orchards and lettuce, we're talking generally about the same commodities that are being monitored in the Pajaro area.
So really quick, because I'm sure there's a lot of things, maybe one of the things you mentioned that you might be in supportive of if the state decided to bring one to Salinas to kind of know. So maybe one small step in collaboration would be is if we create a letter requesting the state to bring down Salinas, would you be willing to sign on to that letter saying, hey, we really need a monitor here in Salinas?
I think those are conversations that I probably would have on my own with the director. I think it's better to have your own concerns and requests being voiced through your own group, and I do the same through my office. When I have a request from the state, I want to make sure that they understand what my concerns and requests are from them. So I think it's better to keep those separate. As a regulator, I come from a different perspective as well, so I want to make sure that the state understands where I'm coming from as a regulator. But like I said, if DPR is willing to put a station in Salinas, I would support that decision because, I think I would also be interested to see what the difference is.
I'd like to
and
say
what we're
something,
finding.
you just talked in circles right now. What he asked you was very reasonable.
Yes.
You have no interest
No,
in wanting to have air monitors unless the state tells you to?
No, if
You're the
that's-
local ag, I'm telling you, you're the
Excuse me,
local
sir.
ag guy, and you have no interest
I'm
unless
willing
somebody
to
tells you to?
support if the
You
state.
can't even sign a paper? That's very reasonable what he asked you, sir.
I will advocate for my
You're
own
just kicking the
programs.
can.
I will
It's called
advocate.
kick the can, is
Okay.
what you're doing.
So I'm not here to argue with you guys.
No, you're not.
I'm here to listen to your concerns, but
I just thought I
if we're
would
gonna
point that-
argue back and forth, we're not gonna get
I just thought I
anywhere.
would point that out.
What I'm saying
My
is,
apologies.
you are correct, sir.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to sign on a letter with your group. I will write my own and have my own communications to mention what my concerns are and what the concerns from the community are in regards to having a monitor in Salinas. That I will do.
And if a district goes out of its way to put a monitor and invest in that, is there any way that the county could come in and provide financial support in terms of maintaining that monitor? Because I know my district right now, they're only able to do it for 1 month. And after that, they're gonna look at the data and they're gonna approach your office. I think they've been emailing you to set up an appointment once they pull out all their data. But I'm hoping that this pilot program that our district is going out because they're seeing the urgency in what's happening in our district with our students and our staff, that the conversation continue between your office and Salinas Union High School District. Because I know that they're stepping up to help you regulate by pulling the data. And I'm hoping that when they sit with you, that conversation continue, but my district is gonna need that pilot program where they continue to be able to monitor and especially if the data comes back, that there is harm happening in our communities.
That's a great question, and so any monitoring of pesticides is not with the local county or ag commissioners, that's a state program. So my suggestion would be to have the school district reach out to DPR And I've had a conversation with them last year and had talked about, the air monitoring program that is run by the state. So that's what I would recommend. Our county would not be in a position to support that program because that's not something we oversee locally. That's something that is managed at the state level, unfortunately.
Thank you for responding to them, and great questions and great comments. I know that we do want to keep it on time, and I know that sometimes these arguments could get heated, but I think it's understandable. We're all coming from different points of view, so I hope both of you understand that. The one thing that maybe you could do, Juan, is basically require those notice of intents when it comes to organophosphates. The OPs, let's just say OPs, right? That's something that you could do. Forget the air monitor right now conversation, but those notice of intents, requiring the notice of intents for OPs, can that be something that your office could commit to?
Just to be candid and straightforward, based on the results from the air monitoring station, I don't think that's warranted at this point. So at this point, I'm not willing to make any organophosphate restricted materials. What I'm committed to is, if DPR finds that there's issues with these materials in any of the monitoring that they do, I'm happy to have a conversation with them to figure out, what is causing any detections that are outside of any of their screening levels. I'm happy to have that conversation with DPR so we can figure out what's going on and whether or not there's a need to have additional restrictions, mitigations for the use of these materials. I'm also willing, and as I always have, holding our growers accountable to make sure that they understand that if there's any new restrictions by DPR, that they know and that we hold them accountable to following those restrictions, just like we do with every other pesticide.
Okay. So just for clarification, so if you don't hear from DPR, if you don't think there's an issue, even though many of us have been saying that there is an issue, there is a high usage of OPs in Monterey County, you are not willing to get those notice of intents, to require notice of intents, and more likely to web post those notice of intent. So that's definitely something that I'm hearing that's a no.
I will also will not be web posting. That's why Spray Days is the notification system that DPR has put in place. I think Spray Days is something that has to continue to be used to be fully transparent with all communities in the state, to hold all the counties to be following the same level of information that's being put out there to communities and to be fully transparent. I think once you get into each county doing their own notification, it becomes messy, the information is not consistent, it's not the same. So I think what I would say is that any notification request that any member of the community may have, it needs to utilize the Spray Day systems, and it needs to follow the guidelines, the regulations, and the intent of what that system was created for.
And if that is going from the county to the state, right, when somebody.
Correct.
Why are sprays being approved at 7 a.m. on a Monday through Thursday schedule for chlorpyrifos? Chlorpyrifos. Like, when I saw that notification, I was like, wait a minute, what happened to our school buffer zones? Who read that and approved that to post it in here when it was at 7 a.m. On a weekday?
Something was.
Because I forwarded that to you and my union, and that's when the union was like, okay, we need to.
Was that?
So, restrictions are for air jobs within a quarter of a mile, or fumigations or air blast sprayers. A ground application doesn't have a quarter of a mile restriction. So that's possibly what you're looking at. So the regulation is very specific on what the restrictions are. And it could be that, it's likely that if an application was within a quarter of a mile, it would be because it was not an air blast sprayer, it was not a fumigation, it was not required by the regulation. That's why. So there isn't, a ground job can go within a quarter of a mile per regulation.
Can I make a comment?
If that's what you were looking at.
Yeah, and it depends on the material too. If it's like a fumigant, then that's even more restricted, because then if it's supposed to happen within a quarter of a mile of a school, those applications technically are only permitted on Saturdays.
Can I just ask, sir, there's been a statewide trend to decrease organophosphates.
Okay.
So have you received education towards that? Have you been educated by CDPR of its dangers and urged to make a trend in the opposite direction? Was it just your choice, or did they leave you ignorant?
I
I'm trying to
I
understand.
followed the PR's direction, and they review these materials. As you know, there's a registration process in the state, and then they do a reevaluation to continue the use of those materials. So it is during the reevaluation of those materials that if the PR finds that there's some additional restriction or mitigation that needs to be implemented, that's what growers are required to follow. I think that one thing I would mention is that, you know, as you're aware, the state is trying to move towards more alternatives that are more of biopesticide type materials, right? And so, you know, the state is trying to review and approve new active ingredients that growers can use to replace some of the current chemistries. I mean, that's the way the state is moving, right? But these things take time,
I know they take time,
unfortunately.
sir, but if we're in the 99th percentile, we don't know. And many of the surrounding communities like Vermont, this census says it is in the 99th percentile. Does that mean that we're completely inundated? I mean, I don't even know how to explain that. Is it like completely inundated, but you don't want to explain the last 1%? I'm trying to understand how to grasp living with this.
Yeah, I mean,
think
what I
you
can
have-
tell you is that we have a strong regulatory program in the state, and so what we do here locally is to make sure that our growers are in compliance with the safe and effective use. But then at the state level, there's also ongoing monitoring of pesticides, whether it be in the air, they do groundwater and surface water monitoring for pesticides too. So there's a lot there. What I can say is that it's not a perfect system, but it's way better than anything else that any other state is doing. We have the most regulations when it comes to pesticide use imposed on our growers, and our role is to make sure that they follow those requirements.
Omar, you were gonna say something?
Mr. Hidalgo, I think we all can agree right here that all the use of the pesticides that are being used in our county are dangerous and they are hurting our communities. I urge you and your co-workers to sign up for spray days. After I signed up for spray days, my backyard was a Loney school. In 1 month, I got over 80 notifications, sometimes up to 3 times a day of the pesticides that are being sprayed near that school. It's alarming. It's alarming. I work in the school system with a lot of these young people that come to school who are suffering from asthma, who are suffering from learning disabilities, who are suffering from ADHD. It's alarming. They're being misdiagnosed with IEPs. I know people in our community that are suffering from pesticides for years of being exposed to it. So every time I hear you saying something about, I go by the state, I go by the DPR, I want to know what you can do to make a change to help these people that have been suffering for years. I want to hear how you can come to the table and save some of these lives. I don't want to hear about what the state's been doing. I don't want to hear about everybody else. I want to hear what you can do. I know you can do more to help us out, you know, and it's not only a people person, it's not only affecting the people, it's affecting our children, our indigenous community, it's affecting our land, it's affecting our water, it's affecting our air that we're breathing. This has been going on for more than 100 years. This is nothing new, and we need better regulations. We need to be more conscious about our future in our land.
Okay, going with that, Mr. Hidalgo, I know that the organophosphate conversation is something that obviously you say you can't do, you won't do unless DPR, right? But what about what Omar just mentioned, working around schools, and what Anna mentioned, and even Karen having that experience? Would you be willing to commit to helping leave a name for yourself, a legacy for yourself here in Monterey County with the rest of your staff and moving to that 1 mile buffer around schools? You could do that. That's something that's doable in your agency, having that 1 mile buffer just around schools.
At this point, you know, we're going to follow the state regulations, which is the quarter-mile requirements and restrictions. And that's what we're committed to doing. That's what we're going to continue to do, to make sure that our growers are following those requirements, and to make sure that my staff is doing what they need to do when it comes to issuing permits, doing unannounced inspections in the field to make sure that people are applying pesticides correctly. That's what I'm committed to doing, and also committed to, DPR has scientists. When they evaluate pesticides, if they tell me that there needs to be additional restrictions, that's something that we're committed to making sure that our growers understand what those restrictions are. And then as far as spray days, yes, I looked at spray days pretty much every day, so I am fully aware of the applications that are taking place in our county, and I have some of my staff that have signed up for it. I think the one thing I want to make you aware and about spray days is that the intent of the information is to be transparent, to inform the public of pesticide applications that are taking place. The system is not meant to alarm people that because an application is taking place, that they're being drifted on or that they might get sick from those applications. So I think it's important to talk about what the system is intended to do, and it's a transparency communication system. It's not meant to scare anybody or set up as an alarm. And honestly, these are pesticides that are regulated. They're registered for use in California, so they're legal to be used. So again, I think it's important for the public to understand what the intent of spray days, notification
But it's also
is.
valid for the community to be concerned, to have those feelings, especially if they have family, if they have children near schools in these communities. Again, it's predominantly Latino Indigenous communities that are being hurt. So it's valid. Yes, spread days is that transparency, but it's also a key for them to, somebody finally validates their feelings that these are the pesticides that are being applied, and how am I gonna take action to protect myself? And it should be alarming. That should be part of the conversation. We shouldn't say that is not gonna be validated.
Right.
So
So
When
what I can tell you is
When
that,
I first got the spray day notification on a Saturday, I emailed the principal and I said, I'm supposed to be coming in here on a Saturday intervention. This is what's happening early in the morning. Our school got closed for that first Saturday. After that, that's when our school district had to get the monitor to make sure if something's happening on a Saturday and we're gonna be impacted, I wanna make sure that they're aware, like, we need to know, do we need to shut down on Saturdays? We already did it one Saturday because that spray was gonna happen right across the field. And so that's my urgency, is my school is open even on weekends. So we need real strong buffer zones, because then what are we gonna do, close our schools down? Or staff, once I get that notification, do you think I'm gonna show up to work on that Saturday? Protect us at those 7 AM, our schools
Right.
are open.
I think it's important to understand what the type of application is, like my colleague was mentioning, because if it's a soil fumigation, that's one thing, but if it's, it could be another spray that the law actually allows for the application to take place. So I think it's important to understand those requirements. I think the other thing I want to mention with Everett High School, the school is not right adjacent to ag fields. In fact, there's a section, I don't know what we're trying to do or what the city's trying to do, because a lot of those fields, as you might be aware, are going to be annexed by the city of Salinas in the future. That's where the city is going to get built into. But there's a section that is not farmed. I don't know if you know that. Tim, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but I've been looking at the map, and there's a section where there's no farms in that area, so that increases the buffer from the school to the closest agricultural field.
From my fence, I can see the truck that's pulling out with the big containers, and it's not even 100 yards.
This is from the school fence?
The school fence to the, right across where the trucks are. And when I see those trucks, 'cause I live right across, those trucks are, it's big clear containers that have the liquid, and they're putting them on back of trucks as they're rolling out. And, they're wearing their hazmat suits. And, our school got shut down, but over the field, about 200 yards, people were out there working. I was like, oh, Dios mío.
Yes.
La gente está trabajando y acá, they're working, and over here, they were working on the fields, and over here they were spraying. Our school was shut down that Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my concern, is that even when these applications are happening, people are going out there and they're being put to work. People are like, and I tell my students,
Right.
register, know where your mom's gonna go out into the fields, because we need to protect our families.
So in the fields, there's some, growers actually do a good job of communicating. So there's a lot of communication that happens. But typically there's some distances that harvesting crews maintain from applicators. And so there's no rule at this point, there's no regulation that prohibits both activities from taking place, but people have to be thoughtful about communicating, and they also have to be thoughtful about what is the distance to maintain between workers and an application that's taking place. But you know, what I can say, if you see that in the future, you can feel free to reach out to our office and we can have one of our
I
staff
took
go out
pictures. The
there.
way they communicated is they hung white hazmat suits with masks all across Natividad. And so as I'm driving, I even recorded that. I was like, what is this, the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan? You know, white things hanging? And it ended up being, as I looked, it was that video recording of a white, and that's the warning. And that's the bad message to send our community.
Well, so that's scarebirds. That's why those are out there.
And it
Those are
had a
just-
hazmat thing on the day of the spraying.
Yeah, that's the scarebirds.
We're at time already, and I know it's been a very good conversation. I hope that we had more time with you, Juan, to be able to continue the conversation. I'm gonna go around the room so everybody could have a final say, because I know that not a lot of us got a chance to speak. So I'm gonna wrap it up if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Maybe it'll take less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
Just the final thoughts, comments, anything that you wanna address. But my last comment is, I know that you did a wonderful job when you were the Santa Cruz County Ag Commissioner. So I'm hoping that you could do something here in Monterey County. And you have said no to the rest unless DPR is telling you otherwise, right? But what about the pilot program of having an infill organic buffer around schools? Is that something that potentially you could at least look into the conversation? I'm not telling you right now, we're not telling you do it, but can you look into it? Can you start the conversation? I know that we did talk to Sanford about it, and Sanford said he was gonna talk to other colleagues. Is that something that at least we could get from you, Juan? Just
Look, I'm open, so
conversation.
I support any type of ag, right? Whether it be conventional or organic, my job is to make sure that whether you're an organic or conventional grower, that you follow the regulations and the programs that my office implements. I think organic decisions are decisions that growers have to make on their own, that take into account land availability, whether the economics make sense, and what the market demand is for those commodities. So it's not quite as easy as to just say, oh, I'm gonna turn this farm organic necessarily. Again, those are decisions that growers make on their own. I don't get involved with those decisions. I support any agriculture. So if a grower says, you know what, I got this field next to the school, I think I'm gonna go organic with it. Awesome.
Just think about it, pilot program, infill, working with DPR, there'll be incentives for the growers if they wanna do it. Just look into that conversation, I could send you more info. I know I don't wanna take the rest of the time, but really quick, start here and then go your way around, final thoughts, comments.
Yeah, well, first of all, with respect to the time, I appreciate the moment you gave us to be able to have this conversation, and of course, very heated in the respect to that this is lives that we are talking about here actively, and as much as we respect the time that you're giving us here too, we should have that same respect for the children going to these schools. I myself went to one of those schools, we started the middle school in Greenfield, and the only thing dividing us from a grapevine where pesticides were actively applied was a chain link fence. I myself suffered an asthma attack because of 10 chemicals applied that day. Was rushed to the hospital in the back of an ambulance, struggling to breathe. I wouldn't want that for any other child. I'm going to school, I shouldn't be expecting to be rushed to the hospital almost on the brink of death. And to that, I would strongly demand that you do what's in your power, and what I do is in your best judgment of these mile buffer zones, because these are children's lives that are at stake because of these dangerous chemicals. I feel that it's still alarming. It should be alarming enough that we have chemicals designed for war and various other nefarious purposes be applied in such close vicinity to where children are learning. If we're already taking their right to human dignity and health away, why should we also have their education hampered and taken away because of effects that they shouldn't have to be responsible for?
Thank you, Victor. Yes. Final thoughts, questions?
My final thoughts is it breaks my heart to hear you play kick the can and to just act like it's not a big deal. You're right, it breaks my heart, bro.
Well, it is a
You're
big deal,
the
sir,
one,
it
I'm
is.
talking, no, I know, but if it is, then why don't we have air monitors? Oh, because the state doesn't want it, oh, okay. Because EPA doesn't say so. It's your job to be the adult in the room and to control what the ag is doing out here, right? And you're not acting like that. You're acting like you work for them, like you don't work for us, like our tax dollars don't pay your salary. That's how you're acting right now. It breaks my heart to see another brown man oppressing our people like this. It's terrible. And I just wanna know how you sleep at night. Do you sleep good at night?
Not really.
Okay, well, that's good, because you shouldn't.
Thank
I'll
you.
pass the buck to someone else.
You made a comment about the spray days data was not meant to be alarming. I'm wondering how I should respond when I see 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. methanolanate SP being applied within 1 mile of my home. Am I not supposed to act and close my windows? Am I not supposed to act proactively for the next potential 4 days to keep my pet inside? I'm really troubled that I live in a community that I don't know what I'm breathing. And I struggle because I love Salinas. This is where my mother was from, and she fought passionately for so many things in this community, and I don't want to leave it. And even if I do leave it, I'll continue to fight for Salinas. But I do want to breathe, and I do want to be able to be safe and know that I'm safe. And that's just me as a resident in jeopardy. How much more for those that are working the field or disproportionately? And you see, again, if you go back and you read some of this data that's been collected about the county, there's clear information about disproportionate asthma, allergy rates, and so forth. Personally, I got involved with this over a decade ago, primarily because I developed a formaldehyde allergy. I was sent to the hospital for 10 days and then had to do follow-up at Stanford and put on an injection every 2 weeks. And I cannot tell you how many people I have encountered in Salinas who have expressed to me that they have a formaldehyde allergy. Now, when you Google formaldehyde, it comes up with a definite pesticide connection. And my brother spent over 30 years at Toxic Substances. And when I first developed the allergy, he said to me, that makes no sense, you couldn't have that. You haven't worked around that, you haven't been in an industry. This just doesn't make sense. But I think it makes clear sense. And I just want to live in a healthy environment, and I truly care about all the people that are impacted. Look at the Chamacos report. How long has that been going on? Talking about things take time. That took a lot of time, and it still does. So I'll leave it at that, because I've said enough today.
Mr. Hidalgo, I hope that we could sit down and have some more conversations, but I always say this in different spaces when I'm going on there. You talked about the scientists, you talked about the state regulations and all these people, these are experts. Talk to the real experts, the children that are going to the hospital suffering from asthma attacks, the people that are suffering from pesticides exposure. Talk to those experts, listen to their stories, get to know them, get to know your community. Visit some of the school sites where these schools are being exposed to pesticides. Come out and meet those students, come out and meet those teachers that are suffering from the exposure. So, gracias for your time. I hope that we can have more conversations and come to a solution.
Mi último comentario, pues yo soy padre de Víctor, el hijo que estuvo expuesto a los pesticidas. Y yo como padre, pienso usted como padre, quisiera, si mis manos estuviera hacer un cambio, yo lo haría, porque nadie espera a un papá que le esperen y le llamen. ¿Sabes que tu hijo está en el hospital? ¿Por qué causa? Que salga el resultado que por los pesticidas. Como padre quiero irme a dormir a gusto y mi manos hacer el poder un cambio, lo voy a hacer. Nos puede ayudar con una milla para las escuelas. Ese es mi comentario.
If you could communicate with the Salinas Union High School District, previous principals had access to the system that gives them all the pesticides that are going to be used for that whole year.
Correct.
But because the principals have moved on, we have new administrators that don't have access to the system, as well as continued communication with the Salinas Union High School District with the data that they're going to pull. And any pilot program that comes out, please connect it with the Salinas Union High School District and put Everett Alvarez on the top of your list, especially those 3 growers. Before we had the 1 mile buffer zone, one of the growers came and met with my administrators and talked to them about what was being used across the fields. And my administrator was like, hey, Barrera, what are you doing? The growers came over, they wanted to tell me when they're using, why is this happening? I go, oh, it's because they're going to start having to do this 1 4 mile buffer zone. They're going to have to give you a whole list of what's being used. So I think that commitment of a grower to come over our school and have that conversation with an administrator, to me, tells me that they're willing to work with whatever pilot programs might want to come into the district. because, you know, they're concerned about our students just as we are, and they want to also safeguard. So I would say, knock on those 3 growers and
Yeah.
make Everett ours.
And I'll connect with your school too, because I think what happens, the growers have to do the annual notification, but like you said, if the principal changed and that information was not updated, then the notification, I'm not sure where it's going,
Yeah,
so.
that's since 2017, we've had like 4 principals.
Thank you, Ana. ¿Algo?
Lo voy a decir en español.
Sí.
Muchas gracias por su tiempo. Y yo soy la tercera generación aquí en el Valle de Salinas. Primero vivíamos en Salinas, en esta área, y ya después nos volvimos a Greenfield. Le he pedido por favor que tome en consideración lo de la milla que se le está pidiendo, y mi exhortación es que deje huella en este condado con sus buenas decisiones que Dios le va a iluminar. Gracias.
Thank you. And look, I work for a statewide organization, California Pesticide Reform, and from the statewide point of view, we're especially concerned about Monterey County. I mean, the local conditions here are really extraordinary. I mean, 1/4 of all organophosphate use is concentrated in Monterey County. And we have the Chamaco study that, I know you're talking about a air monitor way the heck up in Pajaro Valley, but in the Salinas Valley, you know, we know there's been awful consequences to organophosphate exposure. And the fact that more than half of all births are within 1 kilometer of organophosphate applications, you know, that's concerning too. And because these are extraordinary local conditions, and because 1,3-D is applied in concentrated areas in Salinas Valley and Pajaro Valley, you know, those are legitimate concerns, I think, of the people that you've been listening to. And almost all of those pesticides are banned in dozens of countries. And they're used in enormous amounts, and organophosphates in growing amounts. For fumigants, there are more fumigants applied within 1/4 mile of schools now than there were in 2010, when the California Department of Public Health did their study of pesticide use near schools. So these are extraordinary local conditions that present undue harm to the people of Monterey County, especially in the Salinas and Pajaro Valleys. And that's why we're simply calling for some extra protections, given there's extra use here of stuff that is, much of the world finds intolerable. They don't want their farm worker communities exposed to these. I was kind of hoping we get more from today, like the number of people you've heard from, and I do hope, as Omar suggested, that we can continue the dialogue, because, you know, just continuing as we are, with more fumigant use near schools, with more organophosphate use, I mean, we can't do that. So I'm hoping we can figure something out. And today, unfortunately, I think we haven't, but I hope you've heard that we want 1 mile buffer zones, at least around schools, that we want, at least so you can make the decision about organophosphate use, that you require NOIs for those, because none of the organophosphates in the area require these now. And that also that, look, if we can have a pilot project that encourages growers to go organic around schools, we know these stuffs are poisons. They harm our kids. So, you know, it's not any kind of farming is okay around schools or is safe for kids. We know organic farming is safer, especially around vulnerable populations. So I do hope we can continue this, but pretty disappointing today.
Wes, really quick.